just write a book. Welcome to the Supper Club. My name is Joe Fresta, and I'll be your host. The Supper Club, brought to you by Mercy Health, transforming the health of our communities. Kuna Food Service, a family-owned tradition since 1918. Lordo's Diamonds, your family jeweler for life. Pristine Design Build, boutique residential solutions for your home. Oliva on the Hill. And Fresta Limoncello. Keep sipping, my friends. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Supper Club. My name's Joe Fresta, brought to you by Mercy Health and Kuna Food Service. Today we have another honored guest today, a star-studded restaurateur that just went into the wine distributing business, Mr. Anthony Tony Bommarito.
Hi,
Tony,
Joe.
great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
fabulous.
Love to talk about old times.
Yeah, isn't it the best? I wish we could bring some of those old times back. Speaking of old times, you grew up in North City, correct? The North Side?
North City.
Yeah, and we'll just get right into it. Your father owned a bar. It was a bar called Tony's Spaghetti House, correct?
Correct. Well, prior to that, he had a small little, it was almost like a lunch counter, a little lunch counter with the bar,
Right.
set down, and he had that, opened that up, and he called it Tony's Spaghetti House, and it was busy. But then around the corner from there, a little bill opened up, and that's when he moved because he couldn't serve liquor at the other place.
Oh, okay.
That's so that he was only there, I'd say 6 months.
Oh, okay.
And then he moved to Broadway, and then we were there for a long time, and that's
Yeah.
where we settled.
Right, and that's where it really started to blossom and went on from there.
From there we grew.
Yeah. You and your brother Vince
Mm-hmm.
went to St. Louis U High.
Right.
So
Same as you, I.
You guys were you were the smart guys. You were one of the smart guys.
I tell people we went there. I still think it's one of the great high schools in the city.
Is.
I still think, but I look back now after years and thank my mother how she had the insight.
Sure.
Because we didn't have the money to do that, to send us from North City to St. Louis U High.
Right.
And at that time, we'd get on the bus and drive all the way to. But looking back, it was a blessing. We met. Even at that time, you met a different group of people. There's all kinds of people going to school there.
Yeah,
So
it was the same
good.
way. I went to CBC.
Yep.
And most of us work for you guys, but no, I went to CBC. There was a lot of that diversity. We went to school with, the upper class people, lower, whatever, people from all walks of life, and I think that was really the education. But getting back to St. Louis U High, just a tremendous academic school.
Yeah,
it's just very, very, very good.
It still is, and I think that they were. Later on, it's been a helpful part of my life.
Absolutely, sure. So while you were in high school, your father passes away.
Yeah.
And then your brother Vince took over the restaurant, right?
Right. I was a sophomore. My brother was a junior. And 1 year ahead of me, we graduated there. My father died in April, so it was towards the end of the school year. And the following year, he became a senior, and my mother was running the restaurant because my father passed away.
Okay. And then when you graduated, you went ahead and joined your brother.
My brother.
And how did you handle that? You were doing breakfast and lunch, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, if you knew the downtown at that time, the little restaurant was in a busy part of the area where the produce market was there. There was a meat market, fish market. There was a lot of activity, and they worked nights, and they used to get off in the morning. And
sure.
So my dad had a little place we served breakfast, and then we served lunch that was primarily how we started. With
So people wouldn't go. They wouldn't go to have breakfast before work. They go after work.
Yeah, after work they come in.
Because they work the night shift or what
they
have you.
come in.
Wow, that's interesting.
So, yeah, it was but it was a busy, fun place with different people coming
Sure.
in and out.
Yeah,
So-
and then I think did you handle breakfast, and then your brother Vince handled lunch? Is that how it
That's
worked?
how I worked. I came in, opened up, and took care of breakfast, and
Yeah.
he came in for a little later and worked the lunch, and then we opened up a little bit in the early evening, and so he would serve, stay later, and I would come in a little earlier.
Then you and your brother kind of came up with a moniker, if you will. He called it "Do things a little bit different and do it better,"
Yeah. Yes.
and that was sort of his words to live by.
It was a little words for us most of the time that we were in that business.
Something you
And
can fall back on. And
I go back and I still to this day can remember the little story when he with the breakfast. He said, instead of selling these donuts in the morning, I made an arrangement with this bakery up there on 13th Street. He said, on the way to work in the morning, why don't you stop by there? I got a deal. The guy's going to sell us Danish pastry. Truthfully, I didn't know much about Danish pastry in those days. So he said, it will be we could do something different than the other
Right.
places.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'd stop in the morning, get a big tray of these Danish pastry. Instead of charging a nickel, we could charge a dime.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, we'll be a little different,
Right.
Be
You
different.
offered something
a little
different.
better. Different, a
And
little bit better.
better.
little
Right.
better.
Do a little better. A step above.
Yeah, and just tired them. And
You
that's-
had all that traffic. I mean, you related to that a little bit earlier, where that North Broadway was such a hustle and bustle
busy
area back in those days, with the produce row and all that kind of thing going on.
Right.
And not far from the river, so there's a lot of commerce
Right.
coming up from the river and whatnot. So those had to be some interesting times back then.
Yeah, the river was a very train-driven and truck-driven.
Oh,
area
sure.
along there.
Because they had to pick up from the barges and
Something.
whatnot. Yeah. So you, in 1958, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
you stopped serving breakfast
Mm-hmm.
and started moving into dinner.
Yes.
And then,
Well, that's we were busier in the evening. We started getting much busier in the evening, and my brother said, "Why don't you close? We'll close for lunch." And he needed someone more helpful, and then I went
Sure.
to help him. And I had just gotten out of the service. I was in the service and got out in 55, 56.
were you
and,
there? What, you were in the service? What, 2 years?
2
3
years.
years?
2 years.
2 years.
So I was in the service, and then when I got back, we kind of figured out what to do, and
Sure.
he took on more of the
Right.
front of the house stuff, and I
Right.
started doing some of
And
the back of the house.
You like being in the kitchen and expediting and cooking and all
Cooking,
that
yeah,
kind of
that's-
thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it was.
yeah, interesting. It was a perfect, plug and play. And I think both you guys are, each a little different. You bring a
Yes.
little different
Well, my
personality.
brother was much more outgoing than I was, and
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
much more front of the house. And then, but on the other hand, when I was in the service,
Yeah.
I worked in the kitchen, so
Oh.
he automatically thought I knew how
So-
to cook. I mean, I didn't know how to cook.
So you
I
learned how to cook in the service.
I
huh?
did. I know how to peel potatoes in the service. I didn't learn much about cooking, I tell you that. So, but I did.
Yeah.
At least they thought you could cook now. So then I leaned towards the back of the house a little bit more. So.
Yeah. So then you changed the name to Tony's Spaghetti and Steakhouse.
Steakhouse. That's correct. Because right next door, up on the second floor, there was a meat company called McFarland Brothers Meat Company, and he told us that we should. Why don't I'll cut you a few steaks and maybe you could sell them at night because we were
Sure.
open at night.
Sure.
So he'd cut us some steaks, sirloin steaks. He'd cut them and bring them down, and we'd sell them. But being a little different, we served the steak with a little side of spaghetti. No potato. So we thought
right.
no potato. So we had steak
Yeah.
and spaghetti. So the guy could come in. Well, the steak business grew pretty well. It was
Right,
we got
right.
busy, and he used to cut these steaks. He said, "I'm going to age the meat." But we don't know about aging beef. He had beef hanging up there.
Wow.
He'd age it, and he'd cut
That's
us
the best.
cut us the meat and all that.
Yeah.
We didn't know anything about that.
Right, but it was good.
So it was a very interesting. We learned, and that's where the steakhouse came in. So
Sure.
we were upgrading, And
Yeah.
and I think we went from red checker tablecloths, some kind of a white table.
White. Went to the checker to the a lot of the Italian restaurants all over the country had those checkered,
was part
kind of,
That
deal.
was
But
the core.
You
That
guys
was-
stepped it up, did it a little different and a little better.
Yeah.
Once again, and with the pasta on the side. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody, steak and potatoes,
Joe-
right? And then you
Joe,
guys.
But I don't want to get the feeling that we thought we were better than
Well, just-
someone else.
just different.
We weren't a better
Different made it better.
person than someone. There was a lot of good people. We
Yeah.
just tried to run the restaurant a little bit better.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And not that we personally would be better.
And then you got into, you started to step it up a little bit. And this is when the Tonys that we know in the later, up until recently, you became more of this fine dining scenario. And I believe you've talked before about a gentleman by the name of Mr. Leopold.
Leupold.
Yeah, and he was he an older gentleman who kind of maybe showed you some things?
He was very instrumental in my thinking and in our thinking at the time. At that time, we had many of the young guys that had come here from Italy or something, a couple guys from Germany, and they were all waiters in the restaurant.
Yeah.
And they all came on, opened their own places, but they were working, and we were busy. We were busy every night from 5:30 to 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, every night. But these guys, I tell them, many people along the way, I think there was an era there when that was probably the busiest and best restaurant years the city saw.
Right.
That's my.
And
I'm not putting anybody else down, but we were busy, and we had, Palmano and Giovanni Galati
Yeah.
and Dominic and
Yeah.
Menio and Hans Peach. There's Helmut Rice. I was thinking of the German guy. These guys worked so hard, and we were so busy, but they loved it, and they were busy. And when they were busy, they were all making.
They were making money.
But they loved it, and the people, I don't think they ever saw, and we were always blessed with a good guy in the kitchen. We always had a good, stable person in the kitchen, so we were blessed, but it was fun. We'd work all night, and then where are we going after work? What do you want to do?
Sure.
We were still full of energy, but
Right,
it was that
right.
kind of it was a heck of a buzz.
Hustle, and it was just a lot of going on.
It was a very interesting time.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Yeah.
But and to your point, you did have a lot of gentlemen who did go on in their own right and open up their own restaurants. Guys like John Mineo,
Yeah.
Paul Mano, Giovanni Gabriele, my father's partner, Tim Tucci,
Kim.
worked there. And another gentleman who didn't go the restaurant route, but became a very successful clothier, men's
did.
clothier,
Yeah.
Mr. Sam Cavato.
Cavada worked there. He was
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
You mentioned briefly this gentleman Leopold, Anton Leopold. He was an older man, and he was working at the Mayfair Hotel.
Oh, wow.
And the old Mayfair Hotel had the kitchen in the basement. And
Sure.
He had to walk up and down the steps with the tray. Very classy. It was one of the class places at that time in the city. And he couldn't make the steps, and he came over one day and he said he loved waiting on people, and he did it, but he couldn't do that anymore. And my brother and I, we talked, and we said, we said, boy, that man be really helpful if we could use him. How can we do it?
Sure.
But we hired him, you know.
Sure.
And now he's in the mix with all these other young guys, all speaking Italian. They're
Right.
speaking buzz.
Right.
And he's in the middle with the gray hair, very sophisticated, looked like a violin player. And he,
Straight from Powell.
he gave us a little. He came in one day. We said, "How come you're not supposed to put that glass down so hard? You're supposed to put it down gently, you know."
Right.
Oh yeah, okay. Cause we're probably banging them on the table, you know. We didn't know. So we put some cloth underneath the tablecloth to make it softer.
Soft.
And he would tell us. He wouldn't tell us. We would hear him say, "Is everything to your liking this evening?" And we said, "What did he say? What did that guy say?"
Yeah.
We would say, "Everything okay, sir?" Or
Yeah.
"How was that?" Or something.
Yeah, right.
But he
right.
polished it up a little
Right.
bit, and
He
that
cleaned
kind
it
of
up.
little things like that. Details
Right. Right.
details in every business,
Attention
in what
to
you're
detail.
doing and whatever it is. It's a lot of details that are important, and he was very helpful in helping us learn a lot about fine dining,
Sure.
and
Sure.
that's where we might have knew food, we might have known how to take care of people,
Right.
but when you want to talk fine dining, it's another level.
He brought you that next
he,
level.
He was very helpful in bringing fine dining to
Was it
us.
just from observing him, or did you guys
No.
say,
No.
Leopold, come over here,
No.
sit down with us and tell us what is this?
Just
No.
observing.
Just watching
We
him.
just watching him
do his craft.
We gave him his station. He had a station like everybody
Yeah,
else,
sure.
with a few tables, and
Uh-huh.
but he was so gracious with those people and everything
Yeah.
else, and we learned from that.
Yeah.
We learned.
And then soon you just had everybody start doing it like that.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. And how long was he with you? I
Oh,
know he was a little bit older,
long,
but how,
and he stuck around for quite a while.
right. Right. Was it about was it 40 years, something like that? 40
He for
with you guys? Did he stick around that long?
Yeah.
And then when did the famous walking backwards, the
Oh,
waiters walking backwards,
well,
when did that come to be?
we made after we remodeled one time. Well, we remodeled, then we had a balcony in the restaurant all the time, but there were little narrow steps, and then we put an addition on, and then this head waiter at the time, darn, I can't think of his name, but anyway, he got in a habit of he hated to turn his back on people walking up the steps, so he walked up the steps backwards, so he would see people, and that's how it was.
Wow.
He came to work with. You mentioned Sam Cavada. Sam was
Sure.
working for us before that. This was after Sam Cavada.
So then you see
he
him
was working
doing
on the
that.
door.
You see him doing that, and then you start to have all your servers do it that way.
Yeah, when they went up, they started
Go up back. Wow, that's-
so it's kind of. It
Yeah.
became a.
A thing. It was a thing.
It wasn't planned. It wasn't told to do. It just happened. You know.
Yeah, it was a Tony's thing.
So
Yeah.
anyway, it was.
It's interesting.
It was interesting.
Because everybody talks about servers walking backwards up the steps. It's always one of the things they always talk about.
Yeah, it goes back to the older guy. Service, how to
Yeah,
be
the lead guy.
polite, and
Yeah,
it's not that any of the other guys weren't polite, but they just that gentle touch is something you have to see it to understand it.
when did the whole mobile 5-star? When did you get onto their radar?
On that. Well,
In
I don't
70s,
remember the exact.
72, 71?
I don't remember that exact date. I went to St. Louis U High, but I hated history. I loved history. I hated dates, so I still can't tell you the date. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
But I remember when we got the first Mobile Award. We were the first Italian restaurant in the United States to get that award.
Wow.
The first restaurant, and my brother and I could. So he went up to get when they gave the awards out. He went up there for New York, wherever it was, and
Right.
And when he came back, he said, "Boy, that was to see all those people, and it was another education for us along
Was it
the
a
way."
big event they do? Kind of like getting the Heisman, that
something
Heisman
like
in New
that.
York. Right?
Yeah, it was.
The Heisman Award. Yeah,
And
it was a big deal.
It was a big deal at
Yeah,
that
it
time.
was.
It was kind of I don't think we realized what a deal it was. You know, it was nice to
Right.
get it. It was something you could, but locally people recognize us, but they get recognized. But people traveling into St. Louis, and that's where you get that vibes, you know.
Right. They travel.
Go back and they come back and they say, yeah,
You see it, and it gets on the radar.
Yeah.
So in 1972, you decide to expand and open Anthony's restaurant.
Right,
And you handled Anthony's.
correct. The Anthony's came about because we were busy at Tony's from opening to closing every night. When I say that, I don't say that braggingly or anything.
No, just
but we
the way
were
it
busy.
was.
We were busy every night. And my brother was married. I was single at the time. My brother had 4 or 5 kids. I don't know. So all the kids were working there, not working there, but he had the children, and I said we could use another place.
Sure.
They were opening the new building down the street, and they came to us and asked us 2 or 3 times about opening in the building. We didn't have plans to do it, but then we decided we would do it. So that's when it came about Anthony's. I was going to run that restaurant, and my brother would stay at Tony's with his son, James, who was just gotten out of chef school, so he
Sure.
was going to be
Right.
there. So
Or Vince.
we were Vince
was it.
Jr.
Vince,
yeah.
yep.
So we were covered at the
Yeah,
time. So
wow.
that's how it came about.
So, and you were instrumental in the design of the restaurant,
Oh, yeah, that was
and you came up with the concept of the lighting,
delighting.
correct? Which kind of gave it that.
The lighting.
Your table might have been next to someone, but you still felt like it was private. It was your.
I'll go back a minute. Before we opened up Anthony's, I went up and worked in New York for a little while.
Oh,
And I was working in New York. And while I was working in New York, there was 2 restaurants up there that I got to see a little bit more of than usual. And that was, one was the Four Seasons, and the other one was a restaurant by the name of the Ground Floor in the CBS building. And they were
Okay.
both on the contemporary side.
right.
And the restaurant that we were going to open was on the contemporary
Sure.
side. So it was along those lines that's how that came about. But one of the things that in opening up the restaurant, the lighting person came and said, we got to do something unique. And that's when he came up with the idea. You've been to places where there's a light in the ceiling
Right.
directly over your table, but that lighting spreads out. The lighting they
It's
have
high
all
up in
over
the-
the table
Yeah.
keeps your eyes going to the light. Thus, the party at the table stays focused.
Sure.
You could be that way. You could be at that table with 4 people talking business or entertaining your wife or whatever
Yeah.
you're doing, and at the next table is right next to you, and you hardly know they're
You
there.
don't even know they're there because there's a little bit of a
And-
kind of a
yeah,
shadow on
yeah.
the border of yourselves,
It
so you
was-
gave yourself a little sense of privacy.
It was really,
Really
it
neat.
was really, it
What a
was
great
very,
concept.
and it was very. You'd have people at one side of the room would never see people on the other side. It was very,
Yeah.
very unique.
Right.
It was, and
Obviously, being one of the top restaurants, not only in St. Louis, but all over the country, you must have had a lot of, celebrities come in, whether they were here for a concert or whether they were professional athletes or actors or playing at the Muni or the Fox or what have you. Do you have any favorite stories about
Oh, boy.
celebrities coming in?
I didn't jump on the bandwagon a lot. We did have a lot from sports fans, sports
Yeah.
players, and
Yeah.
but I guess if you want one story, I guess I could give 2 or 3. One, Rolling Stones when they came in.
Boy.
Came in. So the Rolling Stones are coming in.
Yeah.
They called me the day before or something. They like to come in. Can you take care of them for dinner? And at 10 o'clock at night, they wanted to come in. So I said, that's not a problem. But so anyway, we're going to have table lined up. They're calling me from the airport, from the airplane,
Right.
can we land? Because they wanted to land, and they wanted the limousines to come right in, and they want. And I'm saying, you can land. I'm saying you can land where you want. I don't know anything about it. So it was kind of, and I still remember one part of that story. There was a gentleman working for me by the name of John Tremelli.
Oh, sure,
You know
John.
Tremelli?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, John was parking cars for me that summer.
Really? John
Out front.
Tremelli parked cars for
Yeah,
you?
he parked
Wow.
cars. He was parking cars out in front, and we. I said, John, do you mind working a little late tonight? I said, there's a group coming in by, I don't know, I think they call them the Rolling Stones. I don't know much. Well, John, he's so in, but you're kidding. I said, no, really, you're a kid. Oh, man. I said, so he's worked there. And then he took over when they came in. I guess he took the background because John Tremelli. He got to know the guy, hi, mate, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I
Hey,
don't
Mick,
know.
what's going on. So here they come.
They come.
Was it just
They
the
came
band,
in.
or was it their whole
They came in,
entourage? Or what was
there were
it?
10 of them.
Their girlfriends and wives?
No, just
their
the
girlfriends and their wives?
No, I don't ask those questions.
No.
10 of them came in.
Yeah.
They had dinner, and then
Yeah.
after dinner, they were staying at the Jefferson Hotel. I still remember that. And but they came back the following night, and they after that night, when they were leaving, they gave me a little token there, something. They said, if you like to come up afterwards, we were having a little party after the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
I dressed with a button-down collar and a striped
man.
tie. And I said, I can't go to no party like that. And I said, I'd be
Oh,
out of
man.
place. I was saying to myself.
Jumping Jack Flash.
Yeah, so I said, so it's one of the regrets I have. I didn't go to that party.
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
would have
go
seen some
either.
things there.
So,
Maybe not wanted to see. But yeah, it was probably in their early years, I would imagine.
Yeah, so that was
Yeah.
they were interesting. That was a good group. And,
Yep.
But I remember when Ozzie Smith signed his first $1 million contract.
Yeah.
Ralph Kiner and Buck and
Yeah, everybody.
those guys and Shannon.
Well,
coming
I
in.
know when the Rams moved here, Georgia Frontier, who was a native St. Louisan, who actually brought the Rams to St. Louis, she came to your restaurant all the time
Yeah, she was
with
a
her
good-
whole, with 20 people.
She was a big supporter of Tony's,
Yes.
more so than Anthony's.
Okay.
Georgia.
She would come in the Tonys.
More a lot.
Yeah.
She was really at that time.
Yeah.
She was a good.
Yeah, I know she
shot
came
the
in a
arm.
lot.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
a good shot in the arm for downtown.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
gosh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
charging.
So I want to ask you, what was maybe the most extraordinary thing that has happened to you on the evening, at night, at the restaurant at night, something that, that comes to mind that was maybe either presented a major challenge for you or something you may have seen or people, guests doing at the restaurant or anything that, or was everybody pretty much well behaved at all times?
I don't have
Nothing.
much.
Yeah.
If you really know me, I'm not much of a gossip guy. I don't
Yeah.
know much.
Yeah.
I'll come home and my wife would even ask me at the time if someone was in or who was in, and I say I didn't tell her much. It just
Right.
It just wasn't my makeup to say a whole lot about what went on. I don't have any problems. I don't remember. You always have a little ups and downs, but it's absolutely people. It's a business you have to work. You work hard.
Mm-hmm.
You work long hours, but you meet a mix of people that I think everybody in the United States should serve some time in the restaurant business, in the service and in the restaurant business.
Kuna Food Service, providing quality food to people across the Midwest, is part of our rich history at Kuna because food brings people together. We specialize in having a large variety of food products and food supplies, catering to an array of businesses that turn to us. Kuna Food Service, a family-owned tradition since 1918.
What do you want me to do? Cook dinner and pick her up from soccer practice? Oh my gosh.
Take a number.
And also take her to school.
Nobody likes to wait. Mercy is eliminating the wait for great health care. Our online tools mean you can get the care you need now. Mercy Now. More of what you need now.
Oliva on the Hill. It's Italy in the city. With exquisite old world charm, this ideal setting is perfect for your next special event, wedding, just having lunch, or enjoying Wine Down Wednesday and the Antique Market. Check it out, olivaonthehill.com. Lordo's Diamonds, your family's jeweler for life. Family owned and operated for over 70 years, specializing in engagement rings, fashion jewelry, gemstones, and in-house jewelry repair. Relaxed, friendly atmosphere, competitive pricing, and a selection second to none. Conveniently located just west of the Galleria on Clayton Road. Lordo's Diamonds, your family's jeweler for life. LordosDiamonds.com. Joe Fresta for Fresta Limoncello. My handcrafted small batch citrus liqueur is perfect for sipping or pouring in a cocktail. All natural, gluten-free, Fresta Limoncello is sold at Schnucks, Dierberg's, Straub's, Total Wine, and local restaurants. Fresta Limoncello. Keep sipping, my friends.
Yeah, that's what it's just such a great foundation for, if you can deal with people, different types of people, different situations, you get yourself, and it may not even be your fault, but you get into a jam and you got to work your way out of it. It really is a good training ground for life and then maybe moving forward in another career.
It has been. But you talk about having all those guys that were from Italy, couldn't speak. I remember one of the time guys, I got apple pie tonight. We had a man make some apple pie, and now some of the people like cheese on top. And they said, you order your apple pie with cheese. And the guy comes to the kitchen at first, says, I want some of that apple pie. I said, okay, give him apple pie. I go out and he's serving his apple pie, putting grated cheese on it. I said, no, not the grated cheese. I said, it's supposed to have American cheese. He said, I didn't know anything about American cheese. Well, so you're always learning,
Yeah, that's right. You never know.
You think you know.
You never know what
that's the experiences you get in that business.
What people are going to throw at you.
People business.
I want to move into the 80s. And, downtown was starting to kind of slip a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I know your brother Vince was really involved with downtown St. Louis, I believe it was an organization. But there was some talk about him moving the restaurant from downtown to the old Bush's Grove in Ladue. And we know now that never happened. But do you think that was a mistake, maybe, not to make that move? Or
you'd have never got my brother to move from downtown.
Right.
I mean,
he was so loyal to it.
He had never worked any place but downtown. He went from high school to downtown working, and he was a downtown guy.
Yeah.
He and the Bommarito family as a family was a downtown family. The Bommarito family started downtown.
Sure.
7th and Carr in the old Italian, different Sicilian part of the.
Where the dome is now. Yeah.
So he was. So I don't think you'd have ever. He talked to them because.
Lester Miller.
Lester Miller was a good customer and a friend and tried.
Sure.
And he was interested. He got interested, but when it got down to push to shove, it
just didn't make sense for him.
It didn't make. And you own your property and you own your building and to go pay rent and stuff. But I don't think he ever. I don't think you'd have seen the new Tonys in Clayton if he was alive today.
Right.
I still don't think so.
Wow. That's interesting.
That's
how loyal he was to that downtown. Yeah. I know I used to, I spent a lot of time with your brother at the Missouri Athletic Club.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went there every day. He was there every day. And I bet we sat together 20 minutes every day and would just talk and whatever, sports or whatever. It was just
It's when sports or restaurant. I didn't go too far off for that.
or restaurant or boxing or
Yeah,
because I know he was a boxer at one time.
Yeah.
But just a wonderful man, and I was lucky to get to know him. And I don't think I would ever got to know him if it weren't for downtown and the Missouri Athletic Club. As we'd sit together up on 5M.
Yeah.
It was a floor on the Missouri Athletic Club locker room area, floor, lounge, and I spent a lot of time with him. We'd sit and talk, and he was just a wonderful guy.
Missouri Athletic Club was a busy place in that era too.
Yes, it was.
When we first started the Tony's life, it was like lunch and that.
Oh,
Missouri Athletic
yeah.
Club, it was so there was a lot of action downtown, and I don't think that ever left my brother's mind. He still always loved downtown. He grew up down there, and I don't think he left. It's a little disappointing. I think right now they're in a little bit of a funk, but I think you're going to see a little change.
Yeah, you hope one day it comes back around.
Even at the tail end of Tony's downtown, I'll just talk to you about that. The downtown was kind of slow, but every night he still had a fair amount of local people still came. He was busy.
Right.
But probably half the amount he usually had. But the other half always made up with convention business. But there was no convention business. There was nobody visiting our city, which was kind of sad.
Right.
And any fine dining restaurant you go to usually has a little mix of something.
Sure.
You have a mix of local people, but maybe
Some travelers.
you're there with your wife or something special or something. But they like the mix.
Right.
And I think we missed the mix. And today we mix the mix
Sure.
for fine dining in our city, which is kind of sad.
Yeah. You were such an established restaurant, such a iconic name, synonymous with the restaurant business, the best of the best. So you were a destination. So people that you were, it was such a wonderful place. People, they didn't care. Let's go. We're going to go down there anyway. And we're going to, like we always have. We're going to go down there and patronize them and go out to dinner at Tony's.
But Joey, and also, and that keep in mind is that we always did get a whole group of people from across the river, which people
sure.
a lot of times forgot about that. But you take areas like Belleville and St. Collinsville and Granite City, some of those places, there was a lot of really fine people that used to come across. So it wasn't just the local people from here or there. It was a mix. It was always interesting. That's why I think that business was so interesting for us. We had a mix of employees. We had a mix of customers. We always had great people in the kitchen. We were blessed with that always. And
that's what makes it go, quality people.
And
you can't do it by yourself.
No, and we had fun doing it,
Yeah, well, that's...
Yeah,
you know what? God bless you, because
yes.
I know I'm not going to do anything unless I'm having fun doing it. That's
Yeah,
the way I
you
look
do.
at it. But
Well,
and I even think about the Illinois piece.
Yeah.
You don't think about
But
that,
you
but
ma-
yeah,
But you and your dad and his little group, by the way.
Yeah.
They injected themselves into the community pretty
sure.
well. They were very strong for a long time there.
Yeah,
You'd see these people pop up.
Yeah.
We knew what they were doing. We had
sure.
our eyes open,
Yeah.
our ears open, but we had to do something different though. We
and a little better. And you also had the sports crowd too.
And the sports was just sports.
Sure,
was
you
all
had the
that.
people before the games, the Cardinal games, the football games when the Cardinals were here, even the football Cardinals and
all that stuff. Oh, we had this. I still remember a quarterback for one of the teams came in before one of the games, and he had dinner, and he was with this beautiful girl. Looked like his wife. I'm not sure about that, but anyway. And he had too much Chianti that night, I think. But anyway, the next day, he was out there, and he was the quarterback. My brother said, "Oh, man, I'd like to bet a few dollars on this ball game." But he didn't do that. He wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it was probably Joe Namath or somebody
I'm
like
not
that.
gonna bet
That
you.
guy,
I'll tell you.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you a quick story about an athlete. Well, we had Shannon's, a good friend of mine, Jim Downey, who was a bullpen catcher for the Cardinals, and he became friendly with Will Clark when he played for the Giants. He didn't come here yet. So the three of us went out one night after the game, and we went down to AJ's in the Adams Mark Hotel, where Lucy, your niece Lucy was. And we were sitting around this beam pole, but it had like a table that was around it. And all of a sudden, this waitress kept dropping drinks off, and we're talking. And the two of them like to hunt. They love to talk about hunting and all that kind of thing. Will was a big hunter, and we just and all of a sudden we'd look down, and Will looks at the waitress, goes, "What are you doing?" She goes, "Well, these people around here keep buying you drinks, and I'm just delivering." He goes, "I'm not going to drink these drinks." He goes, "Well, they're already paid for." He says, "Well, these guys, I guess these guys could have them, you know." And we're like, "Well, look, we might have had one or two of them." But I asked him, I said, "Will, why don't you have a drink?" He goes, "I'm going to tell you why." He goes, "If I go to the ballpark tomorrow and I go 0 for 4, it'll be all over the place that he was in there and he was getting blasted and all this kind of thing." He said if I want a drink, I buy it myself.
Yeah.
And I never, to your point.
Those are the things you see and you learn, though.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes.
And that was before cell phones and all that kind of thing. Even he was watching himself. So yeah.
You got to get that splinter out of your eye first. You know,
right. So once you at some point you leave the restaurant business, and now you start A. Bommarito Wines. You get into the wine business.
Another venture.
What made you want to get into wine business? Did you? Were you a sommelier at all at one point, or did you?
Back to the original statement.
Okay.
As much as the restaurant was, we got publicity awards, all this. We never thought we had a wine list or wines at the same quality that you would see when you went to New York or San Francisco, maybe Chicago at the time. You go there, you go to a fine restaurant, they'd have these wines that are unique. You read about them in Decanter magazine or something. Why don't we have them? And we used to ask, why can't we get these wines?
Right.
Well, so there was a void. To answer your question quickly, there was a void for fine wine in the city.
Sure.
And that's what pushed me in that direction.
To do
so I said, how do I get these fine wines? And I I learned the reason why they weren't here, and I found out how to get them here. And I took one step at a time, and I was very lucky. And I will say that leaving the restaurant business, you say, well, after all these years in the restaurant business, will it ever be of any advantage to you? You know, I did the restaurant business for 40 years.
Sure.
Is it going to be any? What can you do with it now? It was helpful. I went to some of these when we got awards at all these places. I tell people how I started. That's how I started. I went and talked to some of them. I said, you know the guy that owns that wine? You know this one? What about that?
Right, sure.
And a couple of them wrote letters for me. And
Helped you out.
I went.
Gave you an idea.
Especially California wines, because I didn't know much about California wines.
Sure.
So I got my foot in the door. I had a lot of fine California wineries.
Sure.
And that's somewhat. And I knocked on doors and talked to people. And,
Yeah.
And I just told somebody the other day, they were going to business school, and he says, yeah, I'm going to business school. I says, it's good, it's very good, but you don't even have to go. One thing you learn for sure is to be honest.
Right.
And you don't have to go to school to learn that.
No.
So
no,
you learn
don't.
that.
You learn that at home.
And I think in dealing with these people I dealt wine with, I was very honest with them. I remember on that story, I took my son on the first trip to go. I took him. We were in France, and we're at this Frenchman's dinner house having dinner, and there were 6 of us there. My son's with me, and this guy, if you were trying to buy wine from a guy in Chicago in Europe,
Yeah.
and he knows food, and you could talk food with him.
Yeah.
It gives you an into the wine. So,
Right.
Okay, so I'm talking food, but I'm in France, and I'm giving a guy instructions on how to make pear risotto, and my son's kicking me on the table. He says, "They don't care about risotto in France." He says, "What are you talking about risotto for?" And I said, "Don't worry about it." But that's how the food related to
That's
the
how
wine
you got
people.
your foot in the food.
Food
Brings everybody
food.
together, doesn't it? I want to go back to what you said. What was the why? Why didn't St. Louis get these higher end,
And
more unique wines? It just didn't.
well, there's a couple reasons. Number one, a big company. You got to be careful about saying that because it's kind of political
Right, yeah,
a little
sure.
bit. So to answer your question,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Right.
well, you might
Yeah.
understand a little bit too
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
what you're trying to do.
That's right.
To get new products into the market is not easy.
Sure.
It's not easy. You have to get. If you do get them in, it's how do you get placements? It's
Yeah.
the other thing. Get place on the rack. Or
Sure.
that. So it is a little. But on the other hand, if you're a wine producer in Italy and you produce a fine wine, but you only produce 10,000 cases. And here I am in Missouri talking to you. I give you a hug and a squeeze and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I says, I don't want much. I just want 25, maybe 50 cases. He looked at you. That's still a lot of wine when you consider the world.
Sure.
In
Sure.
Italy, they sell wine all over the world.
Right.
They sell it all through Italy,
Yeah.
all through it's New York, Chicago. So to get wine to Missouri
Yeah.
is not easy
It was
job all the
hard.
time.
Now, are
It's,
these high end wines or just
both
wines
high-end.
from different
A little bit
parts
of both.
of the world?
To get quality things in, you have to have a good relationship, and we have to have a market
Sure.
to sell those wines.
Yeah.
Both on people have to appreciate them, and you have to get people to want wines at this level. There is a few, but
Right.
if this is the big gap, you got to get
Yeah.
a few at that gap.
Yeah, and they probably were looking for a certain volume amount or to make it
Correct.
worth their while. And of
Yeah.
course, you had to pretty much kind of guarantee that
Yeah.
we'll move it.
And
You know?
but it's we're a good food city. That's what bothers me a little bit about the mix right now. It's a good food city. We need more tourism to help
Yeah,
the city.
we do.
To keep our name out. But that's how you get good wines, and that's how you keep them. That's how you get good restaurants and keep them. They have
Yeah.
to be busy.
I want to go back to Italian wines, and I remember when I was little, Dad would come home from work before he'd go to the restaurant, and they would always have a bottle of Chianti on the table. He and Mom would have a little can in the basket, all that. Chianti's come a long way, hasn't it?
Oh, wow,
I mean,
yeah.
a long way. I mean, it's
Well,
evolved. It's become a better product, I think, and it's been a little bit more widespread and well known
two things.
and respected.
Yeah, two things. Number one, the quality is obviously better.
Yes.
And what comes with that? One of the things that comes is money.
Yeah.
You need money. You need money to produce the quality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they knew how to do it, but their mentality for a long time was more is better. So I could produce 100,000 cases, but if I cut the grapes, half of them off, and produce less, I
Right.
could produce 50,000 cases. It'd be twice as good.
Yeah.
Yeah, will it? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
But they learned how to cut back and how to trim, how to market their wines, and they do
Right.
they do a great job. The Chiantis today are different.
Totally
Chianti.
different now. Not just what they called it,
No.
table wine.
No,
Yeah.
no, you got-
It's,
Chianti today is.
yeah.
I mean, you could buy Chianti at a $40, $50 bottle.
You talk about the volume thing and the this and that. I always hear about Camus, right? But it's they get a good price for it, but it seems like it's everywhere. So when I look at it, when I see them, you know, the amounts of wine, you see it bottles everywhere. How can it be? How can the quality be that good? Still be that good when you're producing so much of it?
There's a line there.
There has to be.
Yeah. There's only so much that piece of property could produce.
Right.
Quality wise, you
Right.
know. I don't know the exact number, but they say if you could get, you don't want to get 10 bunches off of a vine, you want to get 5 or something like that. There's a number.
Right.
So you can multiply it out, and they get an idea. They know how many, and you know when they.
Sure.
So
The
some
grower
of them,
knows.
some of them in that case, maybe we'll buy some, and you have to. That's where you have to know how much you trust the people. They could buy some of the juice from me, or some of the juice from you, and some
Somewhere,
from this guy
right.
over there, and filter it in, and,
And it's not coming from the same.
Yeah, it's not.
That's
from the
what I
same-
always wondered
Yeah, you have to keep your eye
about that.
You
Yeah.
you have to trust the people. That's the other thing in all of
Right.
that wine stuff. You have to trust
Yeah.
the people who you deal with. You
Yeah.
have to trust them.
Yeah, you hear a lot of things about, you know, imported products from all over the world. You know, Italy. Some of the olive oils aren't pure olive oil anymore. You gotta really
Yeah, well,
watch it.
that's-
Everybody's looking to
that's
make a
true.
buck.
That's
and
true. You
They
go
cut
over there.
corners.
You taste the wine, or you taste the olive oil. You go to, especially in Chianti, around in that Tuscan, some of those areas. The olive oil you taste, you say, yeah, I'll take a pallet of that wine. You know, that olive oil. You know. The time it gets here, it's changed completely. you know.
Right, by the time it gets here, yeah, that's true. You don't think about that either.
Yeah,
That's
it's
why
not-
everything, when you go to Italy or Sicily or, you know, the food, everything is so, it's good. It's unbelievable, because there's virtually nothing out of a can. It's
Olive oil.
it's a culinary experience all on its own, that's for sure, so.
Yeah, I went to one Chianti producer, and I sat down. I was going to taste Chianti with him, and before I tasted, he had 5 little dishes with the olive oil in it, because he also produced olive oil.
Oh, he did?
He wanted me to taste the olive oil, so I said, well, I'm used to 1 to 2, you know, but to taste 5 different olive oils from different areas in the vineyard, they all tasted a little different.
Really? Wow.
So you could taste the difference in the.
Yeah.
It's the tree that it grows on, where it is, and just
Yeah.
like the vine.
Right, how much sun it's getting, how much,
Yep.
yeah, it might be on another side of the hill or whatever.
Anyway,
Just that little bit can tweak it.
I don't know much about olive oil. Though.
Yeah, me
I
either.
could talk about wine.
I like to eat. I like
I could
I
talk
like to
about-
consume it, but food and the food and beverage, food and wine business is it's such an interesting business and industry, and it's sort of a little bit of a romanticism to it too, which
does.
makes it interesting. So
Well, you got to touch a part of it. You
Yeah,
got to
I'm
touch
learning.
a part of it, and
Yeah.
it's been very good for. I think for you, your family.
Yeah, it's been
very
good.
for a lot of people. We've been blessed, and I worry about it for our community that we keep it up. I hope that some of the young people continue to
keep it up, keep it going.
Keep it going, and it takes work, but there's no shortcut. You just have to do it.
Yeah,
and
just
that's-
do it.
But we need it.
Yeah. I had an opportunity to meet with your son, Tony Jr., for a while.
Oh, yeah?
And he's
Keep him in line.
we had a nice conversation. He showed me the whole operation, the warehouse, beautiful. Just like your restaurant, you could eat off the floor.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Well, he's
he's a chip off the old block, that's for sure.
There's an example. I might have had a taste for food, but
Yeah.
he's got a really good palate for wine.
Does he really? Wow.
How's he? But he tastes. You taste him all the
He
time.
works
You-
it. And
you-
he get you
yeah.
in it. Yeah.
So he's got a very good palate. I'm very proud. He works hard.
Yeah.
takes care of his employees,
Yeah.
looks out for their things, so he's good. But he's got a good palate. I'll taste the wine, and he'll say, "Yeah, but it's good, but it's not worth $50." He'll tell you right off. You know what I mean? It's a good wine, but it's not worth that.
Yeah.
So,
If I were to ask you in closing, what, because you've been involved in so much business and people you've dealt with both the restaurant business, the wine business, both on as a buyer, both as a seller, what advice would you give a young entrepreneur just dipping into that world? What would be one piece of advice?
I think I would tell somebody is that if there's one thing I can tell you is be honest with yourself and be honest with the people you have to deal with and work with. Don't be afraid to work. It won't hurt you. You could, as long as you get a little night out. But I think honesty is a very important part for you. You have to really. When I say honest with yourself, you do have to like what you're doing, so you have to be honest with that,
Right.
And it just shows up.
I think it shows through when you're passionate about something. I think people
I don't
can
care who you are. You could just tell when someone is
passionate about something. Yeah.
And I'm sure if you're honest and straight with people and the people you have working for you and working for that would be my probably.
Tony Bommarito,
Joe, really.
thank you.
Thanks
for doing
so much
this.
for doing this. I appreciate it. I have a lot of
Yeah.
respect for you and your family too. So
Yeah. Well, thank
you
you
did
for
very-
doing this, and my best to your family. And
thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
it's been a pleasure.
Glad to do it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.